ProClimber inspires and educates people to create healthy, durable and energy-efficient buildings to live, learn, work and play in. Welcome to the ProClimber podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by Sharon Robinson, an architectural designer, certified passive house designer and Homestar assessor. Sharon shares her insights into small, smart spaces, a forward-thinking approach that combines passive house principles, Homestar certification, and offsite construction to create high-performance, sustainable homes. Welcome today, Sharon. How are you doing?
I'm great, Simon. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Now, this is your second time on the ProClimber podcast, so our audience can go back and listen to the first podcast if they like. I'll put a link in the description below. But perhaps for people that haven't heard from you before, could you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, Sharon?
Well, I am an architectural designer. I am a certified passive house designer and a Homestar designer and assessor. And what that means in plain language is that I'm passionate about creating healthy, comfortable and energy efficient homes for everyday people. I'm not one of the award-winning architects practices. I'm really just about solving the very real problems that we have in our building industry and creating quality homes for everyday people.
Your company is called Smart Living Spaces, but today we're going to talk about something that you've created called Small Smart Spaces. Tell us a bit about what the idea and the philosophy is around this concept.
So Smart Living Spaces is the bespoke architectural side of the business, and that it tends to get stuck in sort of high-end projects, Passive House and Homestar, but there's incredible benefits to unpack in those tools and systems. So Small Smart Spaces is finding middle ground and just making it a little bit more accessible for everyday people to actually have a healthy, comfortable, quality home using various systems like offsite, Passive House and Homestar and giving people more easy access to unpacking those benefits.
This concept, the Small Smart Spaces, how does it differ from other solutions that are available to people in the market at the moment?
So I started thinking about this about 4.5, 5 years ago, and that's when I started my Passive House training and Homestar training and got involved in the offsite space. And part of that exercise was looking at the way that people currently build, right? So you have the group housing model and getting curious as to why people chose that. What benefits did it unpack for them and where could they do better or where were they not delivering? And similarly, looking at that bespoke architectural side of a bespoke design and build, what the challenges were there and what the opportunities were there. And I sat there and I sort of saw them at opposite ends of the scale and went, is there a way that we can find some middle ground that we get the benefits of both and also solve some of the challenges that people experience and feeling that they don't have to choose one or the other, that they can actually have some middle ground with those processes. So that's really what started me down this path. And eventually it was like, well, it's time to do this. It's time to create small, smart spaces.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that you picked the best pieces out of all those three different models. So which were those pieces that you picked that were good and how do they come together?
When talking to people who'd been through the group housing sort of model, I asked them why they went to that model. Some of them said it was the only way that they could afford to do this because there's house and land packages that are available. There's financial packages that are easily accessible. And I think there's an allure about people going to everything under one umbrella. And when I asked these people, why would you not go the bespoke way? The challenges were that it's really lengthy, it's really expensive, and it's unachievable. But they say that they really would love to have that quality and they'd love to have the result of what that process could unpack to them. So how did we merge those together? Well, Small Smart Spaces has affiliate mortgage collaborations, so we're able to unpack the financial options. There's green finance that we can key into. The land part we're still working on. We have affiliated builders, so we know that we've got the quality of the build, so you've got the consistent build and design team, so you're almost getting it under one umbrella. And it's streamlined the process with efficiencies, and a lot of the work has been done up front so that we're able to reduce cost and reduce the timeframes so things can happen more affordably and faster for people.
So maybe you can just explain a little bit more about this idea of special loans or interest rates that you're talking about and the banks. I think perhaps a lot of people aren't aware of those.
So Homestar is a rating system by the New Zealand Green Building Council, for those that don't know, and it goes from 6 up to 10. Now, Homestar 6 it's above the minimums of the building code. So that's sort of a good practice. We've got best practice, which is sitting around the Homestar 8 mark. And then we've got world class, which is sitting around the Homestar 10 mark. And what banks like ANZ have started to recognise is if you are building a home that's at least a Homestar 6, you're designing or you're building a better quality product. So they are now offering 0.7 to 1% off your interest loan rate because they've got a surety of a better product and a better home to borrow or to lend against. And so that's unpacking and making building better a lot more affordable for everyday people.
So taking these different components, what are we benefiting the homeowner at the end of the day by putting them together in this package?
If you're referring to like offsite and Passive House and Homestar and putting them all together. Well, let me list out what the benefits are of each of those. So offsite is this amazing space. I started getting into this space about 4.5, 5 years ago, because if we can find efficient ways of constructing and also design in a factory and take some of the work offsite, we can then design without weather delays. We can design quality into it because it's a more systematic approach. So there's real great efficiencies in terms of speed and quality that comes on site. Passive House, we know, is a world standard in creating healthy, comfortable homes with the lowest power bills possible. So both of them involve a lot of consideration at the design stage. So they collaborate really, really well together. I was a little bit disappointed to see in the offsite space that there wasn't more people embracing this, hence why small smart spaces was something I thought that was a good idea. And then Homestar plugs in really nicely with that, with a New Zealand component of being able to unlock that green finance, but also meet people with where they're at, because people might not want to go up to Passive House levels, but maybe they want something better than the minimum of the building code. Again, it's like that sliding scale. Like, why do we have to choose one end or the other? Can we have some middle ground? And because the New Zealand Green Building Council is obviously New Zealand based, they're talking a lot with governance, they're able to initiate and unpack more benefits that New Zealanders can take advantage of.
So you're talking about ways of constructing and designing to obviously save money as well as being high performance. But there's also that word of standardization, which obviously a lot of people don't want to have that sort of cookie cutter effect of the same type of house. So how do you overcome that when you're trying to do this sort of offsite manufacture and to, save people money, and how does it all work?
I don't like the word high performance either, because it seems like it's elitist and exclusive. And I just think that we all deserve a healthy, comfortable home, right? The reason why I don't like the word standardization is that standard plans imply that all the design has been done. And if we're going to design homes that are going to work in the situations where they're being constructed, we need to take into account site conditions, we need to take into account climatic conditions and efficiencies too, because if you're taking a set system and putting it onto a site and it doesn't actually fit the ground conditions, then you're adding unnecessary cost. So the reason why I don't like the word standardization is it's because it has a public perception that everything is done and that the design becomes a product, when in actual fact it's a process. I mean, plans are instructions on how to construct something. And if you're not clear on the vision and you haven't got the vision right, it doesn't matter how good the instructions are, the result may be disappointing. So, yeah, that word standardization, I think, implies that it takes the process out of it and the decisions that are important.
You're obviously the design side of this process, but you're talking here about these sort of factories to build houses. Where are they coming from? Who's providing that service?
Well, people are very key to small smart spaces. So I've seen a lot of people in the modular space try and do it all themselves. And I think we've seen recently some of those fall over just because economically they're not viable. But there are a lot of people doing incredible things in this space and really well in their niche market. So my thoughts were, well, Formants, for example, have their factory where they make SIPs, which is a brilliant product, and they're a collaborator of Small Smart Spaces. Let's leave them doing what they do well, and let's utilize what they do in their factory and then bring it to site. So it really is collecting a network of like-minded, aligned people and products and systems that have already got set up and pulling them together to offer tangible solutions. Yeah, so it's very much a collaborative network.
Having a look as a person that's sort of got a piece of land and they're wanting to put a house on it, what are some of the common frustrations that you think people are facing at the moment when they face this task of trying to find an architect, a builder, and, what are the challenges here?
Some of the challenges, I think, are coordinating on a real basic level, selling a house and where you're going to rent. And so time becomes something that's quite prevalent. How quickly can you get these plans drawn? How quickly can I get my building consent? How quickly can I get on site? How quickly can I move in? Because, people have budgets. So that's a real thing that people have to navigate. The next thing is finance, because obviously once you've bought a piece of land, you're paying a mortgage, maybe you're paying double mortgage, and maybe you're paying a mortgage and rent. So what are the financial options available so that you only start to pay your mortgage once you've moved in? I think that's a real concern for people. And so that really does push down to the time and the money, because those are solutions they need to find in order to make their new home possible.
So how do you overcome that? Because obviously they've still got to live somewhere and they're going to be building. How are they going to overcome that?
Small smart spaces, a lot of the design work has already been done and majority of the construction sets have already been done. So to put together a consent package to take to council is going to be considerably faster than if you went the bespoke way. In fact, I would almost argue if you went the group housing company route as well. So because there's consistencies within the elements, components, and how they all come together within small smart spaces, it means that we can reduce that documentation time quite considerably. And then, of course, the on-site, if we are using offsite products, which we do, we can put your foundations down while your walls and roof panels are being manufactured in a factory. So we can fast track and speed up the construction side of things so that you're not compromising the quality of what you're getting just because you need to be done fast.
So what sort of a build time are we expecting?
It really does depend on the size of it. I'm hoping we can get that down to maybe 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
But that's a project by project basis. But look, I think we can do it.
Do you know by any chance what the average number of days is for a home construction at the moment?
No, I don't.
I honestly can't remember the number myself at the moment, but I know it's way more than 3 months. So.
Well, the beautiful thing about using offsite, and also we've got systems like plug and play wiring, so an electrician can go in and wire a house in a day or two. We use CLT floors and CLT stairs, so those are dropped in straight away. So you're not going to fasten construction with any one silver bullet solution, but we've used as many solutions as we possibly can come up without compromising the quality and creating a healthy, comfortable design, because we're mindful that what we're creating has to stand for 50 years and still has to operate for that amount of time when people live in it. So yeah, we're hopeful.
So you talked earlier about group home builders, and they've obviously got some fixed plan sets. How does small smart spaces differ from that? Because don't you also have some fixed plans? I've actually seen them on your website.
Yes, I do. So the way that it works is, first of all, we have a chat, because obviously if you choose a small smart space before you purchase a design, you want to know that it's going to fit on your site. The difference between that and a group housing company is that all the design work and construction work is done. We can customize that design, absolutely, but because the fundamentals that are locked into the details, how things go together and what you're creating, it's a lot faster to be able to make those changes. So they're totally customizable. But we can offer a surety in terms of power bills, in terms of those mortgage rates, because we know we can get Homestar 6. I do the Homestar assessment. So again, that's all in-house, which does streamline it. So because a lot of that work has been done and those fundamentals have been set and those products have been chosen for a reason, we're able to, offer customization, but still also quite an easy path to go through.
There's a perception, and I'm sure there's a huge part of the market of people wanting to build a home, that they sort of trust the government or the building code, that the home that they're building based on the code that we all, build to in New Zealand is going to be good. What is the problem with that? Why do people believe it's going to be good? And then you and I have obviously seen some things within the industry where people have built a home and it's not really performing. It might be overheating, or there might be moisture problems. What is the reason that the code is so far away from this sort of comfortable, healthy environment that we all dream of?
Well, that's a governance issue. I think the question should probably be, why are we using the code as the minimum standard in a design guide, and why is it so prevalent? There's public perception that the building code does create, as you say, a healthy, comfortable, energy-efficient home, but the building code's a legal document. Consented plans are an approved legal document. Code compliance simply means that what you've done is insurable, it's lendable, you can get a mortgage on it because it's a legal building, and you can sell it because it's a legal building. I think part of the perception is that a lot of people do the bare minimum and market it as quality. There's two excuses that I think keep the industry stuck. One is when the public ask for better, we'll do better. The public are coming to us as professionals to solve a problem that they don't fully understand. If they understood it, they wouldn't need us. So to burden the public to ask for better when they don't know that that's an option, I think is unfair. And then to market what you do as quality when all you're doing is the bare minimum, and say, well, when the law tells us that the minimum has to increase, then we'll increase, I think does keep a lot of businesses and industry stuck. And so that just motivated me with Small Smart Space, just to say, let's just step it up. It's why I love Homestar. Let's just do it. Let's not wait for permission, and let's tell people how they can have it better.
So a lot of people are concerned about the cost of building, and obviously now we're talking about doing something better than code, so costing more. But what are some of the hidden costs perhaps that people don't realize when they build a house, that things like, energy bills and poor ventilation and finance and things, what are some of the areas that, even though you're perhaps paying a little bit more upfront, that you are going to save in the long run?
So the big one is energy bills. I've energy modelled Small Smart Spaces, and I can tell you from a code compliant version of that design, because you want to compare apples to apples, and it's really important to me that what I say is actually backed up with data. So stepping up from a code compliant home up to Homestar 6 home, we can halve the power bill. So on one of them, the power bill was roughly about $260 a month for a code compliant version. And that was to keep the home at a healthy constant temperature between 20 and 25 degrees Celsius, which our building code doesn't guarantee. It doesn't have a maximum temperature legally, and the minimum is 16, which is actually below the World Health Organization's recommended range of 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. So that $260 a month, we can drop that down and halve it. I think it ended up by being about $105 a month. Same comfort, small increase in building spec. When we go up to Homestar 8, we can reduce that again to below 100. And when you step it up to Homestar 10, which is Passive House kind of levels, $52 a month. So the savings in terms of keeping the same level of comfort are immense. You put that onto your mortgage repayments, you're going to save compounding interest on your mortgage. So big picture. Another one with Homestar is there is flow rates on all of the taps. It's a bit unfair to ask the homeowner to understand all of this, but water efficiency is a key component of Homestar. So it means we can reduce water bills. The other costs aside from that, you can save on your mortgage interest repayments, obviously with that ANZ Healthy Homes loan of 0.7 to 1% interest, which does make the small step to Homestar, which is 2% they estimate on top of the construction cost. Homestar 8, they reckon, is about 5%, and Homestar 10, on average, 10%. So that can reduce your monthly mortgage repayments. But then this is the part that's not really tangible because there's no numbers against it. But, if you're a parent and your children get sick, how many unpaid sick days do you have to take to look after your child? If you've got a healthy, comfortable home, you're reducing the likelihood of that happening.
And you've talked earlier about collaboration between other small businesses that you're working with. How does that work?
So apart from the products collaboration and systems collaboration, which happens quite naturally in the architectural realm, I have 2 affiliated builders that have signed up with Small Smart Spaces. So that's Shane Virtue of Virtue Build in Waikato and Nathan Mill of Quality Build up here in Auckland. These guys just get it. We work well together. They're passionate about this like I am. So the collaboration really is about keeping that consistency of the design and build team to ensure that quality and deliverance on site for clients. I also have a mortgage broker that I collaborate with and bring into the process when the time is right. A small business, these two guys started out, they've been in the construction lending space for a very long time. So they have this well-rounded knowledge of where to go for the best loans and to unlock the best benefit. They also have a turnkey option, which means that clients will only start paying for their mortgage once they move in. So that's collab mortgages. Yeah, so those collaboration is growing. I collaborate with Steel by Ultron as well with Grant Anderson. They are now using an affiliate installers program, which is fantastic because we want people who understand these systems to be able to come in and install them because that's where the efficiencies and the qualities lie. And I do believe that Stark, with their Ambience inline range, are also looking at approved installers so that we know that we're delivering quality and we're not going to have issues on site because these people understand the systems and they do it all the time. So there's efficiencies in terms of speed.
So once you get this thing going and you're repeating this over and over and over, and obviously you've got feedback from clients and all the other parties involved, how are you able to improve this over time?
So this is the benefit that the offsite space gets, but that the bespoke architectural design and building group housing companies probably don't get as much. The process is always seen as a single line. You get the design done, you get on site, you get it built, you get it signed off, and no one talks to each other about that project or no one sits down for feedback. The beautiful thing about having these relationships and these agreements is that everybody wants their job to be better and easier. I've always been aware of who comes before me, who comes after me, what do I need from the person coming before me, what do I need to give to the person after me. And so over time, this process has the right communication channels for that feedback to be seamlessly integrated back into the templates, into the process and into the systems so that we iron out the kinks. There will be kinks, but that we will iron out the kinks and become better at what we do.
What do you see as the user experience from someone that first of all comes on your website, or I've seen you've got plans in other sort of areas that people can find you. What is that sort of user experience for the person that discovers small spot spaces and then wants to start working with you, and how will they benefit?
Well, I think one of the big fears that people have going into anything new is the fear of the unknown. So people want to know the cost of the process that they're getting involved in. They don't want to get locked into a really expensive process and suddenly find that they can't carry on with it and they can't afford it. They want to feel in control of this process. So to address that, as I said, you've seen the designs are on the website. They can purchase it, but just before someone goes and purchases a design, book a chat first. Let's just have a conversation, no obligation. And then there's various consultations during the process that can be booked online. Clients are completely in control of when to do this. So they're not waiting for somebody and they're not being pushed by somebody. So if you're ready then to purchase a design, you can make that online purchase. If you're ready then to have a customization consultation, you can book that at a time that works for you. And then we sit down and we do that consult. When you're ready to go for consent, you push the button. So it's really about being transparent with the process, being transparent with the costs. There's obviously some, like the consenting side of things, that are site specific, and we'll have a conversation about that when it's relevant, but we can allow a sum for that. The designs are currently being costed, so we'll be able to have accurate costing on the website shortly, and also have the power bills for the various levels that will be listed up there as well. So people will have an idea of what their mortgage costs could be, what the design costs are going to be, what the construction costs are going to be, so that they can sit down with their budget and ask themselves if this is something that they want to do.
What about if someone is looking at this concept and they really like it, but they actually want to build a big house? Does that fit into your model?
Absolutely, because the reason why I started with small spaces, they're one-bedroom designs currently, is that Passive House and Homestar are really hard to get right on the small parts. So small smart spaces is really new for those people listening to this. It was launched February this year. It's been quietly developing in the background, but it's now public. And small spaces, if you can crack small spaces for healthy, comfortable, energy efficient design, it's so much easier on the larger ones. And it was really important to me to make sure that what I was claiming was actually achievable. So you can take all of the goodness of small, smart spaces and put it into a larger design. And those designs will expand over time. I just didn't want to spend hours designing things that weren't going to fit into what people were wanting. So if you love the idea of small, smart spaces, but you need 3 or 4 bedrooms, let's have a chat. Let's see how we can make it work. This thing is designed to grow with the requirements of the people it's serving.
So if someone is wanting to jump on board and get started, what is their first step?
Let's talk.
Okay.
You can book a chat on the website, hop onto smartlivingspaces.nz. There is a Small Smart Spaces tab. Hop in there. This whole process, all the designs, all of that is on one page. The collaborators on that page too. So if you get curious about who these people are, you can just hop through to their website. Proclaimer's on there too. You are a collaborator. And there you can just book a chat one-on-one, or with your spouse or partner. We can do a group chat and just see if this is the right fit for you.
Excellent, Sharon. Now, is there anything else or last thing that you'd like to leave our audience with today?
I want to put a little call out to any passive house builders around New Zealand that may love the idea of small, smart spaces, because I know builders often say, well, I need a set of plans, but builders aren't designers. And I'm not a builder. So let's collaborate. Really looking for people passionate in the building smarter space, ideally Passive House certified. Waikato and Auckland belong to Shane and Nathan, but anywhere else in New Zealand, let's talk.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you for your time.
Sharing knowledge is at the heart of our strategy to make buildings better for everyone. Sign up for our podcasts to learn more about creating healthy living conditions by protecting building structures from external and internal moisture damage. Thanks for listening. Looking forward to having you with us next time.